Sit closer, my children, and listen well, for this story is not carried by wind, but by water. In the old riverside village of Amudara, life flowed gently beside the sacred river called Ayanmo. The people believed the river saw everything. It watched births, weddings, lice, and tears. Elders said the river had ears, even when it was silent. Many feared it. Some mocked it. None escaped its memory. In Amudara lived a widow named Mama Nena and her 2 children. The elder was Kelechi, tall and sharp-tongued, admired for his confidence and feared for his temper. The younger was Amara, soft-spoken and hard-working, with eyes that carried patience. After their father died, Mama Nena raised them with strict lessons about honesty and respect. She often warned Kelechi that greed eats the heart before it eats wealth. He laughed at her words, saying hunger was worse than curses. Amara, however, listened and learned. She cared for her mother, fetched water from the river, and helped neighbors without complaint. Many said she carried peace wherever she went. Each evening, as the sun sank, the river reflected the sky like a mirror. The elders would nod and say, Ayanmo is watching again. That river had watched generations rise and fall. And soon, it would remember something that one man wished to forget forever. Joy entered Mama Nena's compound the day Amra's engagement was announced. Her suitor, Obiora, was a fisherman from a neighboring village, known for honest trade and quiet strength. When his family sent kola nuts and palm wine, women all elated and children ran laughing through the yard. Mama Nena wept with happiness, thanking the ancestors. Amra's heart danced, though she kept her eyes low in respect. She had waited many seasons, working patiently, while others married before her. Obiora promised a peaceful home and spoke gently, never raising his voice. Kelechi celebrated louder than anyone. He praised Obiora publicly and boasted about the coming dowry. Inside him, something else grew. He began to count what had not yet arrived. In Amudara, dowry was sacred. It was a bridge between families and a blessing for the bride's future. Mama Nena reminded Kelechi that his duty was to protect the dowry, not touch it. He nodded, but his mind wandered. That night, Amara went to the river to pray. She thanked Ayanmo for kindness and asked for peace in her new home. The water moved softly around her feet. Kelechi stood far behind, unseen, watching the calm surface. He imagined what wealth could change for him. The river reflected his face, dark and restless. Elders say when a man looks into water with greed, the water looks back with memory. Preparations filled the days like busy drums before a festival. Mats were aired, pots cleaned, and the compound swept until the ground shone. Mama Nena supervised everything despite her weak body, leaning on a stick. Obiora's family sent word of the dowry, goats, yams, wrappers, and money counted carefully. The village buzzed with excitement. Amara worked quietly, cooking and learning songs for her new home. Women praised her humility and said she would bring honor wherever she went. Kelechi listened to the dowry list again and again. Each item sounded like an answer to his worries. Debts pressed him. Respect had slipped from his hands. He told himself he deserved relief. At night, he dreamed of wealth flowing like a river into his arms. Sometimes, the water in his dreams turned dark, but he woke before fear could settle. Mama Nena called him one evening and spoke of his late father. She reminded him how that man feared lies and respected tradition. Do not let hunger make you blind, she said. Kelechi smiled and promised obedience. Outside, thunder rolled faintly, though the sky was clear. Amara felt uneasy but said nothing. The night before the ceremony, the river ran unusually still. Frogs fell silent. Elders noticed and exchanged looks. When nature grows quiet, they say, it is listening. And Ayanmo was listening closely. The dowry ceremony arrived with music and color. Obiora's people entered the village proudly, gifts balanced carefully on heads and shoulders. Elders sat in a half circle, watching every movement. One by one, the dowry items were presented. Yams were stacked high, goats tied calmly, wrappers folded neatly, money counted aloud. Each count was confirmed by witnesses. Cheers followed. Amara sat beside her mother, hands folded, heart full. Kelechi stood as family representative, his voice strong as he thanked the visitors. His smile was wide, but his eyes burned. Tradition required the dowry to be kept safely overnight before final blessings. That night, songs faded and the compound slept. The moon hid behind clouds. Kelechi rose quietly and entered the storage room. His hands moved quickly, faster than thought. He took money, then wrappers, then more than he planned. Silence wrapped him like a cloak. When he finished, he felt powerful, not afraid. He slept deeply. Outside, the river stirred though no wind blew. Before dawn, Amara dreamed of water rising, calling her name. She woke with a pounding heart, unaware that betrayal had already crossed her path. Morning brought confusion and fear. When Mama Nena asked for the dowry to be counted again, Amara noticed empty spaces. Her breath caught. Wrappers were missing. The money was less. Kelechi reacted loudly, blaming night thieves and careless guards. Elders frowned. Theft during a dowry was a serious shame. Obiora's family exchanged uneasy looks. Amara felt heat crawl up her neck, though she was innocent. Mama Nena stared at Kelechi, her eyes heavy with knowing. She said nothing, but tears filled her gaze. The ceremony ended without joy. Obiora's people left politely, saying they would wait for truth. When silence returned, Mama Nena called her children. Her voice was weak but firm. She spoke of Ayanmo and warned that lies rot faster than yam in rain. Kelechi swore innocence. Amara watched him, confusion tearing at her heart. That night, Mama Nena's sickness worsened. She coughed until dawn. Amara stayed by her side, praying softly. Outside, the river's sound grew louder, repeating itself like a warning. Some villagers later said they saw strange ripples on the water. Kelechi drank palm wine to quiet his thoughts. But the river had already remembered his name. The days after the broken ceremony felt heavier than harmattan dust. Whispers followed Amara wherever she went. Some villagers pitied her. Others blamed her family. She kept her head down and worked quietly, though shame burned inside her. Obiora's family delayed the marriage, saying respect must be restored before blessings could follow. Mama Nena grew weaker, her body bending under worrying and sickness. She prayed constantly, asking the ancestors to reveal the truth. Kelechi avoided her eyes. He used part of the stolen dowry to clear old debts and start trading palm oil. For a short while, fortune favored him. His goods sold quickly, and people praised his sudden success. He laughed loudly, mocking old warnings about rivers and spirits. At night, however, sleep escaped him. He dreamed of walking through water that grew deeper with every step. Strange signs began to appear around Ayanmo. Fish floated dead without wounds. The river rose at night and fell by morning. Children said they heard voices calling softly. Elders grew uneasy. Amara dreamed of her missing wrappers drifting on the river, soaked with tears. She woke crying. Still, she said nothing against her brother. She believed truth would rise on its own. Elders say patience tests the heart, but time tests the lie. And time had begun its slow work. Obiora returned quietly one afternoon, standing at the edge of Mama Nena's compound. He spoke gently to Amara, saying his trust in her had not changed. His kindness broke her strength, and she wept openly for the first time. Kelechi watched from a distance, anger tightening his chest. That evening, Mama Nena called Kelechi to her mat. She held his hand with trembling fingers and begged him to speak the truth. She reminded him that peace built on lies collapses without warning. Kelechi pulled away and remained silent. That night, a strong wind knocked over jars in his store. Palm oil spilled and flowed toward the river. He cursed loudly. Before morning, heavy rain fell only around his shop. The roof leaked, ruining goods. Still, he refused to understand. Mama Nena's sickness worsened. Amara stayed beside her, feeding her with care. At dawn, Amara went to the river and prayed aloud for protection and truth. The water touched her feet gently, calm and cold. Elders say when the river touches without waves, it is heard a plea. Far away, Kelechi counted his losses and wondered why wealth now felt like a burden. Mama Nena died quietly just before sunrise, her hand resting in Amra's. Her passing shook Amudara. Women wailed, and men bowed their heads. Kelechi cried loudly, drawing eyes, but fear lived behind his tears. During the burial, elders poured libation by Ayanmo, asking the ancestors to guide her spirit and protect the living. That night, many villagers dreamed of Mama Nena pointing toward the river. Kelechi dreamed of drowning and woke gasping. His remaining goods caught fire one afternoon without clear cause. Smoke rose like accusation. Whispers grew bolder. Some said the river was angry. Obiora's family demanded answers. Elders called for patience, but tension tightened like rope. One night, the river overflowed suddenly and flooded only Kelechi's compound. Mud covered his doorway. His remaining wealth floated away. Villagers gathered in silence. Amara stood apart, her heart breaking but steady. Kelechi fell to his knees by the river, shaking. For the first time, fear defeated pride. Elders say when water reaches a man's doorstep, his secrets are already wet. The next morning, Kelechi could no longer carry the weight alone. He staggered to the village square, eyes hollow, voice broken. Before elders and villagers, he confessed. He admitted stealing the dowry and lying to protect his pride. Gasps filled the air. Amara covered her mouth as tears fell freely. Elders listened with hard faces. The river behind them flowed calmly, as if satisfied. Kelechi returned what little remained of the dowry, laying it on the ground in shame. Judgment was swift. He was stripped of honor and trust. He would hold no leadership and speak no judgment over others. The village accepted the ruling. Kelechi bowed his head, smaller than he had ever been. That night, the river remained quiet. No strange sounds came. People slept more peacefully. Elders say truth calms nature the way rain calms dust. Amara mourned her mother deeply, but felt a strange release. The lee that poisoned her home had finally been pulled out by its roots. Obiora's family returned after hearing the truth. They came without anger, humbled by all that had happened. Elders met and agreed the marriage could continue, though without celebration. The dowry would be rebuilt slowly, with honesty. Amara thanked them with tears. Kelechi moved to the edge of the village, living quietly. People greeted him without warmth. Each time he passed the river, he bowed his head. Amara chose forgiveness, saying hatred would only drown her too. Her marriage took place quietly, without drums or songs, but with peace. Seasons passed. Children later asked why the river bends strangely near Amudara. Elders answered softly that water remembers footsteps, tears, and lies. And so, my children, learn this truth. Greed poisons blood ties, but truth heals even deep wounds. Wealth taken unjustly never rests. And the river, patient and silent, remembers everything. Life did not return to joy quickly in Amudara. Even after the truth was spoken, its weight remained. Amara settled into her new home with Obiora, carrying both peace and quiet sadness. She woke early, cooked with care, and greeted neighbors kindly, but laughter came slowly. Obiora respected her silence and never rushed her healing. Kelechi lived alone near the forest edge, working small jobs for food. Children avoided him, and elders spoke to him only when necessary. Shame followed him like a shadow. At night, he sat outside his hut, listening to the river's distant song. He remembered his mother's warnings and felt regret press hard against his chest. Strange things still happened around Ayanmo. Fish returned slowly, but the water sometimes turned dark without rain. Elders said the river was still settling matters. Amara dreamed of Mama Nena smiling at last, though her eyes carried warning. One morning, Amara returned to the river to give thanks for her marriage. The water moved gently, brushing her ankles. She felt comforted. Far away, Kelechi tried to wash his hands in the same river, but the water stung his skin. Elders say forgiveness heals the innocent first, while guilt must walk longer paths before rest finds it. The dry season came, and with it hunger for some families. Obiora shared his catch freely, and Amara cooked for widows and children. Her kindness softened hearts again. People began to speak her name with respect. Kelechi watched from a distance, longing to help but afraid of rejection. One afternoon, he tried to carry firewood for an old man. The man accepted silently, then walked away. That silence hurt more than insults. That night, Kelechi dreamed of his father standing by the river, shaking his head slowly. He woke trembling. The next day, a traitor cheated Kelechi openly, knowing no one would defend him. Anger rose, but he swallowed it. He remembered how pride had ruined him. At the riverbank, elders noticed the water pulling debris into slow circles again. They whispered that judgment was not finished. Amara sensed something coming. She prayed for strength, not fear. Obiora told her that storms pass faster when hearts are clean. The river flowed steadily, waiting. In Amudara, people learned that consequences do not end with confession. They walk beside a person until the lesson is complete. One night, heavy rain fell suddenly, though the sky had been clear. The river rose quickly, threatening farms along its edge. Villagers rushed to save crops. Kelechi joined them without being asked. He worked until his hands bled, pushing sandbags, guiding water away from homes. People noticed but said nothing. The river spared the village, but flooded the land near Kelechi's hut. He lost what little he owned. He did not cry. He simply sat and watched the water recede. Elders later said the river was stripping him of pride, layer by layer. Amara brought him food quietly and left without speaking. That small kindness broke him more than punishment ever had. He wept alone that night. The next morning, elders met and said the river had taken its final payment. They believed balance was near. Amara dreamed of the river clearing, its surface bright like glass. When she woke, she felt lighter. Kelechi walked to the river and bowed deeply, promising never to steal again. The water touched his feet without burning. Elders say when water no longer hurts, forgiveness has begun. Seasons changed, and healing slowly followed. Kelechi began working on community farms, earning trust through silence and effort. He spoke little, listened much, and avoided praise. Some villagers softened. Others remembered too well. He accepted both. Amara became known for wisdom beyond her years. Women sought her counsel, and elders nodded when she spoke. Obiora prospered through honest trade. One evening, the village gathered by the river for a festival of thanks. Drums played softly. Elders spoke of lessons learned. They reminded everyone that greed destroys families before it destroys wealth. The river flowed calmly, reflecting firelight. Children played near its edge, unafraid. Kelechi stood apart, watching. Amara approached him and spoke gently, saying the past no longer owned them. Her words eased his spirit. For the first time, he smiled without bitterness. Elders say mercy is heavier than punishment, but it builds stronger foundations. That night, the river sang softly, a sound of rest rather than warning. Years later, elders still told this story to children sitting close, just as you are now. They pointed to the bend in the river and said water never forgets footsteps made in greed or truth. Amara lived peacefully, raising children who respected tradition. Obiora taught them honesty with nets and patience. Kelechi remained humble, his life simple but clean. He never crossed the river without greeting it. The village of Amudara grew wiser. People learned to guard joy carefully and protect what was entrusted to them. When dowries were given, elders watched closely, and warnings were repeated. And so, my children, remember this lesson well. Greed may promise quick gain, but it always leaves deep wounds. Truth may arrive late, but it arrives fully. Forgiveness heals the innocent first, and repentance must walk until balance is restored. And above all, know this: the river sees, the river waits, and the river remembers everything. As time passed, Amudara slowly returned to its rhythms, but memory stayed awake. Elders noticed that people now spoke more carefully and acted with restraint. The story of the stolen dowry became a quiet warning shared at night. Amara grew into her role as a wife with patience. She woke before dawn, swept her yard, and spoke gently to all. Obiora respected her wisdom and often asked her counsel before decisions. Their home carried peace, though the past sometimes knocked softly at her heart. Kelechi continued working without complaint. He fetched water, tilled land, and helped rebuild paths after rain. Some villagers still avoided him, but he did not protest. He understood that trust returns slower than crops grow. One evening, as he rested near the river, he noticed how clear the water had become. He whispered an apology again, not for fear, but from understanding. The river flowed quietly. Elders say when a person learns humility, even nature listens differently. That night, Amara dreamed of Mama Nena smiling and walking away from the riverbank. She woke with calm in her chest. Healing, though slow, had begun to settle deeply into the village. A season of abundance followed. Farms yielded well, and the river stayed within its banks. Elders said balance had returned. During a village meeting, a young man accused falsely of theft stood trembling before elders. Kelechi stepped forward unexpectedly and spoke truthfully, warning against judgment without proof. His words surprised many. The elders listened and found the young man innocent. Murmurs followed, and some villagers began to look at Kelechi differently. Amara watched from afar, her heart full. That night, rain fell gently, blessing the land. The river shimmered under moonlight, peaceful and bright. Elders later said this was a sign that the river had accepted Kelechi's change. Still, consequences do not erase scars. Kelechi remained careful, never forgetting the weight of his past. He taught younger boys to respect boundaries and tradition. Slowly, his presence stopped causing discomfort. Trust returned like dawn light, gradual and soft. The village breathed easier, knowing justice had not only punished but taught. One afternoon, a stranger arrived seeking to marry a young woman of Amudara. Elders watched closely as dowry talks began. Every item was counted twice. Every witness stayed alert. Amara noticed how carefully people behaved and smiled quietly. Pain had given birth to wisdom. Kelechi helped guide the process without touching a single gift. He stood back, respectful and silent. Elders nodded approvingly. Later that evening, the river rose gently, then settled again. No fear followed. Children laughed nearby. Amara sat by the river and spoke softly, thanking it for guarding truth. She felt no bitterness, only gratitude. Obiora joined her, placing his hand in hers. Together they watched the water move steadily forward. Elders say rivers forgive when lessons are learned. Kelechi stood farther away, bowing slightly toward the water. His life had become simple, but it was honest. The village slept peacefully that night, without dreams of warning. Years passed, and Mama Nena's name was spoken with honor. Elders said her spirit rested because truth had been revealed. Amara named her first daughter after her mother, teaching her kindness early. Obiora taught his children patience through fishing, explaining that rushing nets catches nothing. Kelechi aged quietly, lines of regret and wisdom etched into his face. He never married, choosing service instead. He often repaired paths near the river, keeping them safe. One evening, an elder told him that redemption is not a reward, but a responsibility. Kelechi nodded, understanding deeply. The river flowed calmly, reflecting stars. People now spoke of Ayanmo with respect rather than fear. It was no longer just a warning, but a teacher. Elders reminded the youth that nature remembers intention, not excuses. The village prospered not because wealth increased, but because hearts stayed guarded. On a quiet evening, elders gathered children near the river, just as you sit now. They pointed to the water and told this story again. They spoke of Amra's patience, Mama Nena's wisdom, and Kelechi's fall and rise through humility. They warned that greed blinds faster than darkness, and that lies poison families before they poison land. The river flowed steadily, reflecting firelight and faces young and old. Amara stood nearby, listening silently. Kelechi watched from a distance, content with his place. The story had become part of the village's bones. Elders ended with the same words they always used. The river does not rush, but it always arrives. Children nodded, feeling the weight of truth. And so, Amudara slept peacefully, guarded not by fear, but by memory. As Amudara grew older, the story of the stolen dowry settled into the village like carved wooden, changing and firm. Travelers who passed through heard it by firelight and carried it onward. Elders noticed that whenever greed stirred, the river's surface tightened, as if listening again. Amara became a steady voice among women, reminding them that patience is not weakness. Obiora supported her quietly, proud of her strength. Kelechi continued his simple life, waking early and sleeping early, keeping his words few. He found peace in routine and service. One day, a flood threatened farms again, but the river spared homes. Villagers worked together calmly, guided by past lessons. When the waters fell, elders said the river trusted them now. Kelechi stood ankle-deep in mud, helping children cross safely. Some smiled at him. That small smile warmed his chest. He understood then that forgiveness grows through actions repeated daily. At sunset, the river glowed softly, carrying no anger. Elders say when a community learns, nature rests. Amudara rested that night. Time soft and even the hardest memories. New children were born, and old ones passed quietly. The river remained steady, its banks strong. Amara taught her children never to take what was not theirs, even in secret. She told them that lies weigh more than stones. Kelechi taught younger boys to work with their hands and keep promises small and true. Some nights, he still dreamed of his mother, but now she smiled. During one dry season, water ran low, and villagers feared hardship. Elders led prayers by the river, offering thanks instead of fear. The water rose gently the next day. People whispered that gratitude pleased Ayanmo. Kelechi bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. He knew the river had not forgotten, but it had forgiven. The village learned that justice is not only punishment, but correction. Hearts grew cautious but kind, and the river flowed on, carrying lessons downstream. When Amra's children came of age, she brought them to the river and told them the truth plainly. She did not hide the pain or the shame. She said family must be guarded carefully, because betrayal cuts deeper than hunger. Her children listened closely. Obiora nodded, adding that honesty feeds longer than stolen wealth. Kelechi stood nearby, silent but present. He did not defend himself, nor did he disappear. His life itself was the lesson. The river shimmered, reflecting faces old and young together. Elders say when truth is shared openly, it loses its poison. That evening, laughter filled the village again, light and unforced. Music played softly. No one danced wildly, but joy was real. The river carried the sound away, steady and calm. In his later years, Kelechi fell ill. Villagers visited quietly, bringing food and water. Amara sat by his side, holding his hand as their mother once had. He thanked her for choosing mercy. He said it saved his soul when punishment alone would have crushed it. When he died, the river did not rise or rage. It flowed gently, accepting him as one who had learned. Elders buried him near the bend of Ayanmo, not in honor, but in peace. Amara wept softly, releasing the last weight from her heart. Obiora stood beside her, steady as ever. The village mourned without fear. The river remained calm. So, my children, that is how the river remembered everything, and how a village learned to remember too. Greed came quietly and nearly broke blood ties. Truth came slowly and healed them. The river did not rush, did not shout, but it never forgot. Amudara stood because its people learned to listen. When you walk by water, remember your steps. When wealth passes your hands, remember your heart. Forgiveness heals, but lessons must remain. The river flows still, carrying stories beneath its surface. And if you listen closely, you will hear it whisper, nothing hidden stays buried forever.